everybody. It's Foxy. I am so glad to be here and talk about this next eclipse that we have coming up in May. But I think today I'm going to talk about this eclipse that's happening in Scorpio. But I'm also going to talk about the new moon that's happening on the 19th of the month. So I'm going to kind of combine both of the lunations for May into one, because I think it's important to talk about what's happening with these eclipses. We just had the Aries eclipse last month, and I think it's important for us to talk about the Scorpio eclipse and the Taurus new moon, because Taurus and Scorpio, as most of you know, are sitting on an axis. And right now that's where the nodes of the moon are, which are like our fate and our destiny. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about Metonic cycles, and then we're just going to talk about these lunations, because they kind of build on one another. And typically I would talk about the eclipses together, but it just makes more sense to do it this way. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay. So first, let's talk about a couple of things. Okay, I think I have my notes here. So prepared. Okay, so yeah, so let's talk about something. Today is the 1st of May. I should have recorded this over the weekend, but I didn't. I was doing lots of stuff. I was cleaning up stuff, which kind of makes sense since we're having a full moon eclipse this week. And I'm just kind of trying to finish up some stuff that I've been trying to get to, and I got to it. My video wasn't one of those things, but it is now, so I'm doing it now. But today, Pluto, well, let's just talk about some of the things that are happening in May, shall we? Today, Pluto stations retrograde. So people are like, Pluto goes retrograde. And I don't know if it's just the Capricorn in me. I don't know, but I'm just like, that's not true. Because really, today Pluto stations. So Pluto is extremely strong when it stations. So today is the day he stands still, right? When a planet stations to go retrograde or stations to go direct, it's more in its energy. So it's a very powerful day. 1st of the month, very powerful day. Also, May is a powerful month. May is the 5th month of the year, and May, you know, the number 5 is about changes. So this particular lunation that we're having on the 5th is going to be 5-5. If you just go with 23, that's another 5. If you add 2023, it rounds out to a 7. But 5s are massive change. You know, it's like buckle up, change is coming. And I think we're already seeing that, and we've been seeing it since the beginning of the year, but I really feel like it's accelerating a tremendous amount. This weekend, I was just watching the Schumann resonance go crazy, right? So if you're not familiar with the Schumann resonance, I've talked about it before, but you can Google it. But it's basically, it's kind of like the heartbeat of the earth is how it's described. It's kind of like the energy. It's like a resonance of the earth. And we are all connected to the earth. So when this resonance goes and does interesting things, we do interesting things. And I think it really impacts us physically. And lots of body aches, lots of joint aches, lots of like, that feeling that you get where you're just like, you just want to go, run down the street or scream at the top of your lungs, or, it's kind of like when you're a kid and you're frustrated and you don't like what your drawings turn out to be, so rip it up and throw it away, right? It's that kind of energy. And, I think we have so many light codes coming in. We have so much energy coming in, upgrading us, hopefully as we move towards the 5D reality. So you might be wanting to check in with yourself and check in with your ascension process. I assume most of the people, if you watch, or if you're watching this, you'll understand what ascension is. You're going through some portion of your ascension process. I know I'm going through that as well, which is one of the reasons why I kind of took a step back from all the other stuff I was doing. I'm just spending more time meditating. I'm spending more time outside. I'm gardening, which is kind of like, a joke because I'm a terrible gardener. Any of my friends will tell you. Corey, who used to do this podcast with me, is a master gardener. I am in awe of her talent. And, I oftentimes will reach out to her and ask her questions. And I always think, gosh, she must think, what a weirdo. But yeah, I definitely am trying to at some point I'd love to grow some vegetables, but right now I'm just trying to keep some plants alive. It's just not my strong suit. But I've been trying to do more of that kind of simple pleasures of life. I'm learning a second language. So there's just some other things that I'm trying to do. It's not that I'm not in the world of astrology. I can't not be in the world of astrology. I love astrology. I do astrology for myself every day. I always check astrology for my friends and people who have been clients in the past, but I just kind of needed to step back from doing my daily stuff. And it was really hard for me to give myself permission to do that. But now that I have, I'm really I'm really into it. So I'm trying to do other stuff that I just didn't have time for because astrology was just taking up so much of my life. And I thought, gosh, I really want to be present for this ascension process that I'm going through. So I hope wherever you are at in your ascension process, that we are all out here experiencing the same energy in different ways at different levels. And so everybody's kind of like doing their own thing right now, which kind of feeds into what I wanted to talk about before we get into the eclipse. I wanted to talk about the Metonic cycles. And so the Metonic cycles are an 18.5 to 19-year cycle. And when you look at the nodal axis, you have the North Node, which is the future destiny. Some people call it fate. I don't know if I subscribe to the whole fate idea because I don't know that I think there's part of me that just thinks that you kind of you create your destiny, but then there's part of me that I'm not I'm out on that one. But the point being is that these nodes stay in an axis on the zodiac for 18 months. And so that 18.5 to 19-year cycle feeds into that 18-month nodal axis cycle. And so at the halfway point of that 18.5 month, Metonic cycle is that those nodes are opposite in the middle of that. So basically it means that every 18 years, the nodes are basically back at the same place. So that means your eclipse is almost always at the same degree or pretty darn close in the same day, almost 20 years later. And so you get reverberations of the same frequency, right? Because it's the same degree, same sign, same house in your chart. And so if you kind of look back at that 18.5, 19-year cycle, you'll start to see things come back, or you'll start to see things, but you see them differently, obviously, because you've evolved, right? You've changed in that 19-year period of time, 20-year period of time. And so you'll start to see those things coming back. So a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, I was experiencing a Metonic cycle around my cancer diagnosis. And I think I mentioned this, but my friend had this pendant made for me with two, I don't know if you can see it, but they're two Roman numeral, it's like a Roman numeral 20. So it's two X's, right? Could have been triple X, like the movie, which I really loved, but which is a Vin Diesel movie, if you know what I'm talking about. It's not a porno, but anyway, but this represents my 20 years. So I'm 20 years this year out of, cancer free. But, stuff started coming back in regards to that time period and some of the things I was dealing with. And it was an opportunity for me to revisit that energy. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of, kind of just unknown what's going to happen. And, me trying to figure out, what do I want to do in life? How do I want to move forward? And so part of me taking a break from doing Foxy astrology and doing my memes every day and my daily forecasts and stuff like that was part of that is like really looking about how I want to spend my time and spend my energy. And so I've been going through that over the course of the last couple of years. But anyway, the nodes are important. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the nodes. So the nodal axis is going to be changing on July 17th. And so that's coming up. It's not that far away, but the nodes are going to change. And so the nodes are going to move into Aries. The north node is going to move into Aries, and the south node is going to move into Libra, which is really fascinating because Pluto, who just stationed to go retrograde today, he will be retrograde tomorrow, which is the 2nd of May, but he's stationed today at 0 degrees and 22 minutes of Aquarius. So he just got in just the very beginning of Aquarius. Now he's going to turn around, go back into Capricorn for part of the year, and then he'll be back in Aquarius the beginning of next year. But he's going to go back into Capricorn. He'll I think he finishes the year around 29 degrees of Capricorn. But he's going back to about 27 degrees in a few minutes of Capricorn. So if you have anything in the last 5 degrees of Capricorn, you're still going to be feeling it. We're still going to be feeling it for a little bit longer. But anyway, so when the nodes go back, they go retrograde. The nodes are always retrograde. And so the nodes are going to come into Aries at 29 degrees and Libra at 29 degrees. And that is the axis of Aries, the individual, and Libra, the collective or the group. Aries is about forward motion. Libra is about harmony and balance. And so it's interesting that as, Pluto is kind of like, hanging out at this very end of Capricorn, very beginning of Aquarius, that we're going to have the nodes moving into Aries and Libra. It's going to be a really interesting period because, Aquarius is about the collective. It's not about the individual. It's about the group. And it can be, it's considered the scientist or the humanitarian, but it also can be very obtuse about individual needs and concerns. So I think it's interesting that as Pluto is going through this process of coming in and out of Capricorn, we're going to have this this interesting aspect of the North Node focused on the individual. And I really think it's about finding your place within the collective, which I think is why we're going through all these upgrades. And again, which I talked about earlier is, everybody's at a different level of ascension. I would say that there are probably, everybody has their own level of ascension at this point. And I think everything is very individualized. And I think we're going to see over this 18-month period that starts in July, the middle of July, when the nodes move back, when the nodes move into Aries and Libra, I think we're going to see a lot of that, like the individual and the group, and how do you find harmony and balance between those things? And so it's going to require a lot of boundary setting. It's going to require a lot of overcoming legislation, like what we're experiencing right now. We see a lot of this legislation being pulled back that was taken care of years ago. And, stuff that I certainly never thought I would ever see in my lifetime. So it's going to be a lot of that about the individual, working with the group, but in a way that is correct for the individual. And so I think it's interesting because we're already starting to see that type of energy where people want to define themselves. They don't want to be defined by the group. They want to define themselves. And if they want to be in a group, that's okay. If they don't want to be in a group, that's okay too. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that kind of seesawing back and forth as we go through that process. And the nodes stay in an axis for 18 months. And so that's where we get that Metonic cycle, right? 18 months. And then the Metonic cycle is the 18.5-year, 19-year cycle where the eclipses are at the exact degree in the exact place that they were 18.5 years ago. But we're, trying it again, right? Trying it again. So Something I did want to mention too is with the North nodes, I talked about destiny, fate. I'm not a big fate person, but but also the North node is about soul fulfillment. And so when we talk about all the planets, all the celestial objects have nodes. These are just basically, how would I describe them? They're basically coordinates, right? And these are like elliptical points, and their coordinates of where the nodes are. Now, the nodes of the moon are normally, when we're referring to the nodes, are what we're talking about. And the nodes of the moon dictate your path in this life and where you came from. So the south node is karma, and almost everybody knows what karma is. The north node represents your dharma, which is your path in this lifetime, or your soul destiny in this lifetime. And so that's one of the great things, one of the coolest things I think about astrology is understanding your nodal placement and what you should be doing. Because one of the great things about the south node, or your karma, your karma can bring in stuff that you've got to rectify because you didn't get it finished in the last time you were here. But it also brings in skill sets. And a lot of people don't talk about that, but you might have a beautiful voice. You might just be able to sit down at a piano and play anything. You might just have an innate talent for, riding a horse. Like, no, you just know how to do it. These are talents that you bring in from your past life, and your south node can really kind of put those things in touch. So you can kind of understand what part of life they came from, what area of your chart they came from. And so it's really interesting to understand that, because I really feel like the south nodal stuff is a foundation for you to start with. But when you look at the north node stuff, that's where you should, be headed. That's the direction you should be headed in. So again, the nodes of, when we talk about the nodal axis, we're talking about the nodes that, it's like the ring, one ring to rule them all, right? It's like the Lord of the Rings. So the nodal axis is really about the collective, right? But you have a nodal axis in your chart as well, and it's important. Okay, so I'm going to give you some dates. So the nodes for Aries and Libra, and we'll probably talk more about this as we go on through time. But the North Node, the last time the North Node was in Aries, I'm just going to give you some date ranges. January of 1949 to June or July of 1950, August of 1967 to April of 1969, April of 86 to December of 87, December 2004 to June of 2006. So if you go back into those time frames, and for some of you, you may not have to go back very far, but for you might go back to 2004 and 2006 and see what was going on in your life at that time, and see if you feel like some of those things. One of the things that I always feel like really helps me jog my memory about those years is going back and finding out what the most popular songs were, because for me, that connection to the music of that time that I was listening to potentially is what kind of jogs my memory about what was happening in my life. I'm not a big picture taker or, that kind of person. So for me, it's music. But whatever that thing is for you, it might be pictures. By 2004, we pretty much all had cell phones, right? If you go back farther to the 86, 87 time frame, I was in high school. I think I was 16, 17 years old. So, those are really, I think, where when you do the flashback music, it really does help a great deal. All right, I'm going to pull up the chart here for the Scorpio eclipse real quickly, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see it, just so you can see what's happening in this. Okay, so like I mentioned before, let's just talk about the nodes a little bit longer, just for fun. I love the nodes. So here is the North Node. When the T is in the node, I always think these look like horseshoes, but when the T is in the node, that's the true node. Some people use the mean node. I like to use the true node. That's just me. They always vary a little bit, like what, maybe a degree or a couple of minutes, but I like the true node. So right now you can see the node is at 4 degrees of 4 degrees of Taurus. And so what happens when these guys change, they enter in the back door, they go retrograde. So when the nodes started into Taurus, they started at 29 degrees and moved towards 0 degrees, right? Until they get to the next sign. And so just the same way, it's just like a clock face. So the same thing. So the nodes were in Gemini and Sagittarius. So when the South node came into Scorpio down here, he came in down here and moved into Scorpio, and now he's going to get ready to move into Libra down here. So you can see that. But this is set for, I believe, let me double check the time on this. But we have, oh goodness, I have so many things in front of me right now. So this is the Scorpio eclipse on May 5th. This is happening at 10:33 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and 1:33 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I have this set for Eastern Standard Time because I think my chart is set for Indianapolis, which is where I used to live. So that's just where I always set my event charts. But anyway, look at this lineup up here. Wow. So we've got the node at 4 degrees. We've got Mercury retrograde at 8 degrees. We've got Vesta at 9 degrees. We've got well, that's midheaven, that doesn't really count in an event chart. But then we also have the sun at 14 degrees and I believe 58 minutes because it's opposing the moon, since this is a lunar eclipse. And then we've got Aquarius at 18 degrees. So this sun is actually conjunct Uranus in Taurus, and the moon is at 14 degrees of Scorpio. So it's going to shake some things up. So let's talk a little bit about Scorpio. Scorpio is about the hidden. And when you have a full moon, right, things oftentimes are undercover, are revealed. Scorpio has a tendency to be mysterious. And so, you know, a very emotional water sign. The moon rules Cancer, which is also an emotional water sign. So the moon feels comfortable in Scorpio. So I'm thinking with Uranus involved and the sun involved, I think there's going to be a little bit of a shakeup, and it might be that you feel a little bit more comfortable sharing more information than you normally would. There's actually a tremendous amount of stuff happening in Scorpio. Well, I should say Scorpio, in water signs in general. So if you look at the water signs that we're looking at here, we've got Mars is over here in Cancer. We've got Sagittarius, or we've got Saturn over in Pisces, and we've got, of course, Neptune's in Pisces. He's been in Pisces for a long time. So, and then we've got the moon, of course, we've got the south node. I mean, we've got a lot of stuff in water. And so I think even though things are going to be revealed, water oftentimes facilitates things, makes it a little bit easier, right? So I think that because of that, they're far enough away. I mean, Saturn's at 5 degrees over here. We've got Mars at 21 degrees. We've got the moon at 14 degrees. You know, Neptune is trining Mars, but they're not really in what I would call a trine. You know, they're not in a perfect trine, but there's a lot of supportive energy as far as moving things. I think because Uranus is involved up here, there are just things that you can no longer ignore. Things are going to come out. If you've got stuff hiding in the closet, stuff's going to come out. You know, I think about these things all the time. It seems like every day we hear about something crazy happening, or somebody, you know, talking about smack about something, and then the next day something comes out and you know that they're doing it anyway. So here they're criticizing all this stuff or doing something, and they're, you know, doing it as well. So it's kind of like, you know, because Mercury's up here in Taurus where the sun is, and Mercury is at 8 degrees. So that's, you know, only, you know, a few degrees away from the sun. That's still within a degree of conjunction. You it's not a good time to talk smack about people because it will probably come back to haunt you. So just be careful about, what you say about other people. If you live in a glass house, don't throw any stones, I guess is the way to go with that. But the other thing is, when you have Uranus involved in a lunation like this, not only is it because it is an eclipse, it's a penumbral eclipse, it's a total eclipse. So it's pretty powerful, but I think it's more about shaking things up. It's kind of like spring cleaning. You got to throw open the windows, you got to, let some air in the house, you got to, mop all the floors, vacuum all the rugs, change the bedding, that kind of stuff. It's like, but kind of like for your life. So lots of big things may be happening. I know if you look and see where things are happening in your chart, I've had some really big surprises. Even today I had a big surprise and I was like, whoa, just like out of the blue stuff. And it just makes you think, gosh, nothing's set in stone. Everything's in flux right now. It's really it's an amazing time. I think a lot of people are, either wowed by it, ignore it because they're working on their ascension and they're like, whatevs, or else they're scared to death. I mean, I just see a lot of people going through that scared fear, doing aggressive things. I mean, granted, Jupiter has been conjunct Eris up here in Aries, and that's always tough. But Jupiter's getting ready to go into Taurus. We'll talk about that in a minute because we're going to also talk about this new moon in Taurus that's coming up. So this will be the last eclipse that we have in Scorpio. And then on our next set of eclipses that we have, I believe they're in October, we'll have one more in Taurus because that axis, that nodal shift is getting ready to happen. We've only got 4 more degrees to go, right? So in July, when those guys shift over, you kind of are like changing the guard. So this Scorpio eclipse, the nodes determine the eclipses. So the Scorpio eclipse is kind of like, say goodbye to Scorpio. And then next time we'll have one in Libra, and I believe one in Libra and one in Taurus. So that we'll be like, say goodbye to Taurus because it's getting ready to change. And then, as we move forward, the eclipses will be in Aries and Libra pretty predominantly the next year. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about a couple other things. I did want to touch on Pluto really quick. So, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. I'm going to talk just about Pluto I just want to give you some dates. So Pluto today is stationing to go retrograde retrograde. He's stationing at 0 degrees and 22 minutes of Aquarius. And today is the 1st of May. Is it Cinco de Mayo today? Cinco de Mayo. It is Beltane. I know it's Beltane for those of you that observe. Beautiful, beautiful time. So he is going to re-enter Capricorn on the 12th of June. So not too far away, next month, he's going to be back in June into Capricorn. And then he is going to get back to 27 degrees and 54 minutes. So not very far in there. But if you have anything, like I said, in the last 5 degrees of Capricorn, you're going to be feeling it because he's back again. But this will be the 3rd pass. So hopefully whatever's been transforming for you is going to be coming to an end. I have my Mercury and my Pallas Athena at 26 degrees of Capricorn, and I've been going through this process since right before lockdown, actually. That's how, during this process, I literally lost my voice, and I finally am starting to get my voice back, which is really interesting. Okay, so on October 11th, he is going to station direct at 27 degrees, 54 minutes, as I mentioned, in Capricorn. And then he's going to end the year on the 31st of December. He's going to be at 29 degrees and 2 minutes. So I don't think he goes back into Aquarius. I won't know until March of next year. And then I think it's March. I want to say it's March. And then he will be in Aquarius for 20 years. 20 years. He was in Capricorn for 14 years, pretty much solid. but then he's going to be in Aquarius for 20 years. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he transforms our lives during that time. The other thing I wanted to mention is I wanted to talk about Mercury. So, as I mentioned, Mercury stationed to go retrograde on the 21st of April, which was right there for the eclipse, right? For the last eclipse. He stationed at 15 degrees of Taurus. He was conjunct Uranus at 17 degrees of Taurus. So again, that's kind of the beginning of watch your mouth, watch what you say, watch what you think, watch all the things, right? And then he is going to station direct on the 15th of May. So not too far away. Lots of fives. Like this eclipse that's happening on 5/5. And then we've got Mercury stationing direct on 5/15 at 5 degrees and 51 minutes. It's just so many fives. I don't know if any of you have ever seen that movie Where the Heart Is. I used to love that movie. I used to watch it all the time. It's like Natalie Portman and Ashley Judd, and she's got a thing about fives anyway. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. It's a great weekend movie. Anyway, so Mercury's going to station direct at 5 degrees and 51 minutes of Taurus. And then, he's going to be direct for a little while. So that's good. But during this process, there's going to be a lot of kind of revisiting, rethinking. And I think a lot of this is going to be individual stuff. Again, we're getting back to the Aries vibe, right? We're getting back to the Aries vibe and a lot of individual type of stuff. So really looking at yourself, looking at what you want to do, where do you want to be? How do you want to go? What do you want to say? That kind of stuff. So we're going to take a look at Taurus, at the Taurus new moon, because I wanted to touch base, because I think the two go together. It's like chocolate and peanut butter, right? The two great tastes that taste great together. So, Taurus new moon. So this is happening at 28 degrees and 25 minutes of Taurus. So if any of you, I'm just thinking of somebody who's very special to me who has, I think her Jupiter up here. I'm just thinking about her, and she's a Taurus, but her Jupiter's at like 29 degrees of Taurus. But these are up in the Palladian starseed degrees. So if you have anything around 28 degrees, 25 to 20 to 30, or I should say 0 degrees of Taurus, Gemini, actually, there's like Palladian starseed degrees up there. So anyway, so we've got the sun and the moon right here, but they are conjuncting. They're just, I still think they're within reach of this Uranus. Uranus is strong, really, really strong right there. Really, really strong. So I would say Uranus is definitely playing a part in this. But there's some interesting things going on. As you can see, we have this grand trine, and it should be a cardinal grand trine, so or grand cardinal cross, pardon me. So these red lines, we've talked about these before, these are squares, and when you have 4 squares like this together, it actually makes a physical square, and it's called a grand cross, right? Because if you cross between these, there's like a Maltese cross in the middle of these guys, right? But this is like the thing that's kind of jacking this up. We've got Mars over here, and then we've got Jupiter at 0 degrees of Aries, Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. That's some strongness, but they're you've got fire, and you've got fire with Aries, you've got air with Aquarius, which is masculine. But then you've got, the South Node as part of this, and that's in Scorpio, which is a feminine water sign. And it's also fixed. And then you've got, 29 degrees of another cardinal sign over here. So these are cardinals. This is cardinal. This is cardinal, and these are fixed. So it's kind of a weird grand cross. It's like out of sign grand cross. But I think that will add to this weird energy, because I think this is a really awkward, it's going to feel awkward. I think we're going to be in an awkward period of time where we're going to have to make some choices that there might not be a lot of good choices. You might have to make a choice that is the lesser of two evils, but it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out. The north node, again, is at 3 degrees and 58 minutes, south node. So these guys are continuing to move forward so they can move into that other axis, right? But they're right at the very tail end of Taurus and Scorpio. And then you've got, you know, Mars at 29 degrees. That's a critical degree of Cancer. The moon is up here at 28 degrees, almost 29 degrees of Taurus. These are feminine signs. Taurus and Cancer are feminine signs. So these guys are going to be like, you know, kind of, they're going to be sextiling each other basically. And, you know, so that's going to be about getting some stuff done. And I like this moon because after all of this eclipse stuff we're kind of like all jumbled up. But now we've got this new moon energy and it's in a fixed sign. And fixity is great for building something. So whatever you are coming off of these eclipses, you're coming on to this opportunity. It may not feel like an opportunity. It may feel like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Oh my gosh, this isn't what I thought, where I thought I would be. But it gives you an opportunity to pivot and look at things differently, because that other thing that you thought you were going to ride into the sunset has made its way out of the you know, picture. And it has opened you up to a possibility of doing something different, which is what Uranus is all about, right? So it could be really cool. And then, of course, we've got Pluto at this critical degree as well. Pluto is like going to be hovering between 0 and 29 degrees of Aquarius and Capricorn for a while. And that is like crazy, amazing, transformative energy about leaving the past behind, leaving the stuff that you've built behind and moving on to new territory. You might be going back into Capricorn to revisit some stuff, to go back and see what can I salvage, but you're going to be taking that into the future with you. So it's really kind of a cool, really cool. The other thing I like about this moon is we've got Venus in Cancer, which, you know, this is the moon's depositor over here, because the moon rules Cancer. And you know, this is like some good energy. I like this energy. But Venus, who rules Taurus, she's over here trining to Saturn in Pisces. And you know, I don't know. I shouldn't say this, but Saturn's not my favorite. He's not my favorite. Just because I just feel like I'm definitely a Saturn's child. I'm a hard worker. I'm everything I've got, I've earned myself. I'm not, you know, I'm not a, you know, I'm not like that person that has fun. I'm the kid that sat in the sandbox and watched all the other kids have fun. that weird kid. But Saturn in Pisces, I like that energy, because Pisces is all about potential, possibility, fantasy, visualization. And Saturn's about reality, and having those two things crash together. I like Saturn in a water sign. I'm really digging it, actually. And having him trining Venus, which is about the financial, which is about the things that we love and value, while we've got this fixity of this new moon, I think it's a great time to start something new. And I think coming again off these eclipses and kind of this heavy energy and all this transformational energy that we've been experiencing for, gosh, a while now. But it's really ramped up in the last 6 months. The Schumann resonance, you know, all the solar flares we're experiencing, just really intense, the coronal holes and the solar, all this stuff is impacting us. And so yeah, so I'm kind of digging this trine. This trine is like, I think, a rock star trine. I'm really digging it. That being said, we're going to have this ongoing pretty much most of the year, T square with Pluto, and the nodes. And so he is right now, he's got this really awesome T square with Mars in Cancer and the south node Jupiter. Wow, it's intense. That's some intense energy. But I really, again, I think that's like this energy of really figuring out who it is, who are you, what do you want? Are you going to continue to be a part of the patriarchy and be the slave and do the stuff that you were told by your parents you need to do to be a valuable human being? Or are you going to do you the way you want to do you? Because that's really where your North Node destiny is. And speaking of North Node destiny, if you pull your chart, you can go to foxyastrology.com and get a free birth chart on the front page. Just look over on the right hand side and you can look up a free birth chart. You can just Google free birth chart, natal birth chart. You can pull your birth chart. You just need to know where you were born, what exact time you were born. That is very important. If you don't have your exact time of birth, it's really hard to determine your ascendant and the houses in your chart. So it's really important that you know within probably four minutes of your birth time what time you were born. And also you need the obviously the date. But if you do that, you can go and see where your nodal axis is, and you can see what skill sets you're bringing in. Like if this was a person, I would say, this is third house. The third house represents your community, your siblings, your general education, your general knowledge of the world. So I would say that those things, that's a basis for helping you. There could be some really great skill sets there. So like maybe, maybe you were on the football team in high school and you went back and became the football coach. Maybe you did it so you could live closer to your siblings. So you could, support your parents and, have your kids grow up together with your siblings' kids, that kind of stuff. But if your North Node destiny is in the 9th house and it's in Taurus, this is going to be related to the earth. It's going to be related to the importance of the earth. It's going to be related to like natural resources. And it's also going to be related to spirituality because the 9th house rules higher knowledge, which is also can be higher education, like getting a master's degree, maybe getting a professorship and maybe teaching at a higher level. But it also can be about travel, working with people from other cultures. But it's really about knowledge of self. One of the best ways we have to know more about ourselves is to experience people from other places and cultures and other backgrounds, right? So if you say this guy, decided to take a sabbatical, maybe he's a school teacher and he's a football coach, right? Because he lives in this town. And he decides to take a sabbatical and go to Spain because maybe he's also the Spanish teacher, but he's going to take 6 months off and go live in Spain and experience Spain. So he's going to get the benefit of another culture. He's going to learn how to speak Spanish better conversationally. He's going to maybe really get to spend some beautiful time, some downtime, and he's really going to get to travel and learn from other things. I think, I lived in another country when I was in college, and I still one of the best experiences of my life. Every time I watch a documentary or I see something and they're a place that I went to or a place where I spent time, I'm always like, I was there. The people are so nice there, right? There's a great coffee shop there, what have you. So it just expands your knowledge. But I think it's more than that. When you have a North Node in the 9th house, it's really about spiritual connection, which isn't necessarily related to religion. It's related to connecting to your soul, right? But that's how you find these things out. So that's why I say it's really important to go check out your birth chart and get that information. Of course, if you don't have your exact birthday, sometimes, or birth time, I should say, sometimes that's hard. And if your mom's not around and she doesn't remember, or maybe she was out for the pregnancy and dad doesn't remember, it can be really frustrating. You can try to figure that out. I've had some clients that we've worked on that, and we've been able to get close where we think we need to be. But that's it. It's gives you such a better solid foundation about where your nodes are, where your ascendant sign is, which is really important because your ascendant is predicated on the time and location of where you were born, the date you were born. But it also helps you understand how you are in the world, because that's kind of how your ascendant is. That's kind of how you are in the world. So, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't try. You shouldn't try, because you can still learn a lot of stuff about yourself if you can go get a birth chart. So if you don't have your time, and you can ask grandma or mom or somebody and say, do you know if I was born early in the morning? Was I born at lunchtime? Was I born at night? So if you were born, say somebody says, oh, you were born really early in the morning, you could set your time for 2 a.m. or 6 a.m. If you really don't have any clue, I normally set it for noon of the day you were born. If they say, oh, you were born in early evening, 6 o'clock, that kind of, you just kind of do that and see. And I think it's really, once you start to look at your chart, you can learn a lot about yourself. It's really important during these eclipse seasons. We're just coming off this eclipse season. We'll have another one. We typically have two 2 eclipse seasons, 2 eclipses at the beginning of the year, 2 eclipses towards the end of the year, fall time. Sometimes we have more, some years we've had 6 eclipses. But this year, not that much. But these eclipses, the energy from these eclipses runs about 6 months until the next eclipse, right? So the new moon solar eclipse runs till the next one, and the lunar eclipse runs to the next one. So it kind of gives you 6-month window of this energy, and it's much more concentrated energy. Remember, this solar eclipse that's happening, or pardon me, this lunar eclipse that's happening on the 5th, which is Friday, that is going to be that's going to be a full moon. So full moons are the culmination of something. It's the ending of something. And again, with Uranus involved in these next 2 lunations, he's really been involved in the last eclipse as well. Lots of change, lots of shaking things up, lots of doing things differently. So one of the things, that's really helpful, at least for me, is to remind myself that I've always, every day I've woken up in my life, I've made it. You always think that's what's the worst that can happen, but you're like, you know what? So far, for the last 53 years, every day I've woken up and I've made it through the day. So I've got a pretty good track record. I'm 100% so far, and you are too. So just remember, doesn't matter what's coming. It's really all about your perspective. I saw really funny meme today where somebody had a picture that they sent to somebody, and somebody said, nice ass. And the response was, that's my stomach. And it's just like, it's the truth. It's all about perspective. So when something really crazy happens, like when I got cancer, I thought it was the worst thing that could ever happened to me. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it actually really ignited my ascension process, which I've been going through for a very long time. But it made me want to know more. It made me look deeper. It made me question things that I just thought were rote. So it was an awakening experience for me. So if you're going through a tough time during this eclipse season, and this year particularly, just remember, you've got a great track record. You've made it every day since you've been born. You're going to keep making it every day. So just keep on going. And in the meantime, if you need anything, you can get a hold of me. through my YouTube page, or you can get a hold of me through you can DM me on my Instagram page, which is Foxy Astrology on Instagram. So good luck. Don't forget, with the Taurus New Moon that's happening on the 19th, set a new intention, because you're going to be building something new. Very exciting stuff. And it's okay to let go of some stuff here at this eclipse that's happening on Friday. Good luck to you. I will see you next time.